Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Soft Rebellion. My name is Indatu and thank you so much for joining me. Yes, I am still here. I've just had a mental block lately, and this is partly because of my dilemma and what I'm going to talk about today, actually. So, some of you may know that I have been seeing someone, and I've been seeing this person for a couple of months now, and it's great. He's an amazing person, but I just can't shake the feeling that heterosexual relationships are just so disempowering. Like, I feel so disempowered sometimes, and I think that's made it hard for me to show up in social spaces where I have to share my thoughts. And most of my thoughts or things I talk about, I draw from personal experiences. And so I don't know how to balance, paying respect to the relationship I'm trying to establish with this person vis-a-vis speaking honestly and, raising awareness or getting you guys to think about some of the things that I'm thinking about and hopefully make a change or make a difference from doing so. So I feel conflicted, especially because he's a good person. There's no doubt about that. He's a great guy. He means well. But I still can't shake the feeling of disempowerment, and I've just really been cracking my mind about what that situation could be, But I realize even though I'm a feminist and I do have social awareness or even political awareness about the imbalances between men and women, there's a certain expectation that we never imagine that will happen in our own relationships, or at least hope that the kind of work we'll do on both sides will try to mitigate some of those differences or imbalances within a relationship context. But I'm realizing my individual experience, even though I'm enlightened, quote unquote, cannot surpass the years of conditioning. Some of the things that end up making me feel disempowered, I've also co-signed. I'm also like a part and parcel of enabling those to happen. Sometimes for the sake of peace, other times because I suppose I haven't found the language or words to properly articulate my feelings or even discomfort, I'm realizing there's definitely a lot of preempting that has to happen in a relationship. Like, you have to consider someone, think about them, their needs and stuff. I don't think that's something that's unique to me only. It is something that he does as well. I don't know how he feels about it, but like, it's certainly exhausting to me to a certain extent, because there was a point where I'll just up and leave, without considering anyone else's feelings. Besides my dog, I literally just live my life, and even saying so sounds so trivial, but I mean that in the most, like, in the deepest sense. I just don't have the words for it yet, but having to consider someone about every decision you make is exhausting, that's emotional labor. Also, like, sometimes you have to withhold what you want to say because you're thinking about this person's feelings. So there's a lot of censoring that has to happen, which I think also ties with consideration. There's a lot of introspection that also has to happen at a ongoing basis, and yes, introspection is great. There's so many things I've learned about myself that need work, and others that I've learned to really appreciate and love even more, because I'm like, oh, it's so good to see that I am this particular way. But constantly displaying a level of self-awareness is so exhausting, guys, and it's something that has to happen almost all the time, because you're constantly receiving that feedback from the other person who's experiencing you from a different standpoint than you're experiencing yourself, So that has been exhausting, and to a certain extent has left me feeling like I'm not enough. Like there's so many things I'm not getting right, or my goodness, I'm just so rough around the edges. And it's not reassuring at all. But that's not the only thing. Obviously, the emotional caregiving towards the other partner, in a bit to get to know them better. There's a lot of probing that has to happen, and we know that guys don't easily share the internal worlds very easily. But because I'm particularly so keen to connect more and get to know them, I find myself probing, and I don't think that's something unique to me either. But at a certain point, it's like, oh my goodness, this is a lot of work. Like I am really laboring hard to try and establish a connection with this person, to know them better so I can better support them or be a better partner. But all that emotional caregiving work is a lot, and I think that's part of the work that is invisible within a relationship context, because it doesn't come out, it doesn't get recognized as effort. You know what I mean? It's like, I imagine how domestic labor used to be in the past, where it was unpaid, still is in some relationship contexts, where women are just expected to perform domestic labor with no recognition that is in fact, labor that's valuable and worth something, and therefore should be compensated. It was just an expectation. I think I've also co-signed some of that in this relationship as well, where performing labor comes with being in this heterosexual relationship. And I mean, there's no question about the fact that I love cooking and I cook for my people. But I think at a certain point, it became a burden that I took on upon myself to say, oh my goodness, when he's coming over, I'm worried about what he's going to eat. And whereas if I was alone, I could just literally, put something in the oven and eat whatever it looks like. I'm not picky at all. Or I could just skip a meal, But when there's someone else to consider, then you work a bit harder to make sure they don't have to worry about those things, or they don't live the same way that you do. Also, he's like a fitness person, so athletes do eat quite a lot. And so I worry even more about his nourishment, because I don't want him to not have a good time when he's here. And therefore, preparing a meal becomes that much more important, But it really has become a burden. Like, it's something that I worry about, At a certain point, it stops being about, I want to show my love and care through preparing a meal. It becomes this burden. I think also on his side, because he enjoys it so much, it's become an expectation. We're talking about expectations in the long term. And that was one of them. And ordinarily, that would really annoy me. I remember when I was still, actively dating people, and men would always say, I want my woman to cook and whatnot. And that niche would annoy the hell out of me. Like, even though I love cooking, and it's definitely something that I love doing for my people and family, it still used to annoy me. It was such a trigger point for me, and I guess it still is then. So to then find myself in a position where that even becomes an expectation, and I don't think this guy has, or at least him and I have never really had a conversation about my stance in the past, because I've just liked him so much. He never got to be rejected in that manner, and that's why I kind of feel like a hypocrite, or I feel so disempowered, because when I don't want, do I just wake up and say I don't want? And I know I can always, make different decisions, but then to what extent did I mislead this person, to believe that I'm this particular way, only to later change my mind and be something else, I think what I'm observing about being in a relationship, at least in the beginning, is that you put your best foot forward, and if you're unable to maintain that and like revert back to your default, it's like, oh, but you gave me an impression that you're this person and you're that person, even though it may have been the excitement in the beginning, all of a sudden you're a different person, you've changed, and the other, party has to grapple with the changes. And somehow that may feel like, a betrayal or deceit. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But I am struggling. I think the reason why I'm struggling and feeling like I'm disempowered is because I know these are some of the things that I love. Like, I love cooking, guys, but I don't always want to cook. You know what I mean? But I can't help but feel that way, like stress about, even though he doesn't have expectations, it's like I can't just outgrow my conditioning because I now have these set of values, of feminist views, that I've adopted as my own ideology, because I believe in equality. And he cooks too, by the way. Part of the reason I enjoy going to his house is because he has to worry about the food. Like, I don't have to do that, excuse me, when I'm in his personal space. I don't have to worry about anything. Like, he does the cleaning, he does the cooking. If he cooks when I'm there, then I'll do the dishes. But under normal circumstances, he does those. It's not even a big deal to him. But to me, it's just tied to my identity so much. And I think, actually, this is what I think. So part of how I show up in a relationship as a woman is tied to my identity and sense of self-worth. And I don't think the same applies to him. If he decided not to do his bed, it wouldn't say anything about his worth as a partner, you know what I mean, as a potential life partner, husband or father or whatever. Whereas if he showed up and my bed was not made, it would make me feel inadequate, you know what I mean? And maybe that's my own insecurities that I haven't worked through, but I haven't been able to let him, let alone anyone, in my space when it's in disarray. Like, I don't know how to let anyone in when it's a mess, because so much of my identity, and I suppose my worth then, is tied to this place being tidy. My ability to maintain a neat space, because as a woman, you know what I mean, that's what I'm supposed to do. Like, I even feel guilty about the fact that sometimes I can barely get myself together. Like, I take my dog out on a walk and I'm wearing the pants I was wearing yesterday and like 2 days ago, and they have stains because Bobby, so in the morning, there's like, well, this is when I was at his house, they have sprinklers on the lawn, and when I walk Bobby, he gets muddy and stuff. But also, even on the days that it's been raining, sometimes it gets on me and I get muddy, right? But I'll repeat those pants because I'm just like, oh, it's just a mud stain, or it's just like, I can't just wear it once, guys, and then it's muddy, and then, I put it in the washer because it's the only warm pants I have. And waking up at 4 a.m. is freezing cold. And those are the only decent pants that I can find to like put on and take Bobby outside wearing. But when I'm outside and I'm like barely put together, I'm wearing these pants that have this mud stain. My hair is looking very funny. And I feel like I'm barely making it, trying to balance all of that with work, cooking, a well-balanced meal, going to the gym or going for the run, and whatever it is, I'm just like, I'm struggling. And then pair that up with trying to maintain a relationship, be a present partner, attentive and listening. and also still maintain a household, like try to keep my house clean and tidy amongst all of these things, and do that for myself as well. I'm just like, I do not have the capacity to do it. I'm just not well equipped to do all of that all the time, because it's something that you have to do constantly, repetitively. And I wonder how others are doing it and making it seem so effortless, and that's part of the reason why I feel so disempowered, actually, because I'm just like, I'm clearly failing in these other areas of my life. And I think being in a relationship also means I need to at least maintain some level of decency in terms of keeping my space tidy, looking a particular way for his own amusement or whatever. And all of that is time and effort, and it's just exhausting. And I'm just like, I don't know how people do this full time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I seriously have no idea. I mean, there's no doubt that he likes me, sure. But I also know he likes a particular look. I suppose all niggas are like this. I've seen with other guys I've dated in the past as well. Like, dating, I mean, gone on dates with and gotten to know people who've been in my roster, or been in talking stages with. They like a girly girl. And I'm not a girly girl. I'm like a natural hair hippie type. And I think he gets that. But man, you should see him when I'm like put together and my hair is done and whatnot. He salivates, And I know he likes that stuff. And he's like, there's an extra bounce to his step and whatnot. And he'll like compliment me the whole night. So of course I'll feel motivated to do that often for his own amusement, because he walks around the house in shorts, and I enjoy that niche. Like like I said, I'm in my pretty boy era, like I don't think I'm gonna go back to dating someone who doesn't have abs. So I enjoy that he looks gorgeous, and he makes it a point for me to admire his gorgeous body, and see his like beautiful thighs and bum and around the house, whereas I don't make the same effort. And the disempowering part is that realizing that those are part and parcel to a relationship, and also finding the time and effort to do them, is what feels disempowering, because it's exhausting, or it's just not something I have the capacity for right now, given everything else that I'm responsible for. I think in the past it may have been easy. Well, actually, I don't think in the past our families or our parents had to worry about keeping their hair cute for their mans, or whatever the modern equivalent is of doing nails and lashes and whatnot. I won't take it that far, but I think it was partly easy because they lived in community, they lived with grandparents, they lived with cousins, they lived with uncles and aunts and nephews and nieces who could share some of that household labor. Whereas now all of that falls on me. The cooking, the cleaning, the laundry. Yes, we do have modern equipment that is supposed to save us time with some of those, but it's still not shared labor. Like, all of that still falls on me. You know what I mean? Like, I remember back at home how we would take laundry, everyone's laundry, and like go to the river. We would wash it the whole day. That'd be a responsibility for that fell on a couple of people, and that's what they would be doing all day. They wouldn't come home and cook. Someone else, a different cousin, would be responsible for cooking lunch and sending it to whoever has gone to the river. You know what I mean? And cleaning the house would also fall on a different person. So there was a delegation of duties that just isn't present nowadays. Yes, my space is smaller, which makes it more difficult to organize, because things will just be all over the place. But all of those tasks still fall on me. And then on top of that, the responsibility of maintaining a relationship. I'm just like, yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, guys. Like, realistically, I don't know how people do it, And that's why, to me, Ukipita makes so much sense, because, yes, let's share the labor. I mean, this guy doesn't mind cooking. Well, he doesn't like it. He does it because he has to, right? But I think also, just back to the cooking example, that would have been okay if I also didn't have to do my own dishes, On days where I've cooked and he does the dishes, I feel so much relief, because I'm like, oh, at least I don't have to worry about that as well, And then because it's got a bigger space, it's easy to then organize things, you know what I mean? And like, it's easy to keep the space tidy as well, and like combining our schedules and stuff, like moving up and down, trying to see each other and fitting each other into our schedules, and you know what I mean? Like, the days where we've worked in the same space have been so great, but the labor that comes with trying to coordinate and it's just so exhausting. And so, yeah, I really advocate staying together. And I know this would send my conservative mom into a frenzy. But yeah, I don't see any other way outside of staying with a man, guys. And I mean, I am conservative myself, but realistically, I don't see how it's possible to maintain a relationship and still be responsible for all of those things, and still maintain, like, or keep my sanity. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I would lose my mind if I were to operate in this manner in perpetuity. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've got a couple of months left in me at most operating this way. Because there's just no way I'd see this going on for longer, But yeah, this is not how I this is not how I wanted the relationship to go. The conversation to go. But back on feeling disempowered, and this is gonna be a bit more of a TMI, but yeah, I think I like, as someone who speaks openly about what it is that I want and believe in, I do find that it's not so easy to do that in a relationship context, Now, I don't know if this is a symptom of the past, or part of the conditioning still, or a symptom of past experiences. But yeah, like, I think even in terms of intercourse, I always think about the other person's, enjoyment over my own. And because men have it so easy, to arrive, so to speak, it's easy for them to get what they want, and not necessarily for me as a woman to get what I want, because it requires time and effort and, like, whatever else. I think, there are statistics around women's orgasm, for instance, and how only a few percentage, single digit percentage actually, can only achieve that through penetration. The rest is from exploration of other pleasure zones. So I think that's something that is easily spoken about, like in society, in feminist circles, right? But like, when you're now in a relationship context, it is so different. Like, yes, you can have those conversations, and I think even in the beginning, you establish your boundaries, your expectations, and talk about these things. But then the practice of that is also very different, And sometimes, like I said, I do co-sign some of these things that end up leaving me feeling disenfranchised, Sometimes just like, oh, it's fine. let's get it over and done with type situation. Not necessarily because I'm over it, and not necessarily because it's not enjoyable, it is, but because the pressure of having to confront the fact that it's not easy for me to arrive, quote unquote, is much more uncomfortable than just saying, oh, it's okay, you can get your O, and then we keep it moving. You end up letting it slide, but I see the danger in the long run of doing so, because the other person is under the illusion that, hey, maybe everything is okay or whatever the situation is, but meanwhile I'm feeling dissatisfied or I'm harboring resentment. I'm not saying that's the case, but I see that potentially developing in the future, and I just really don't know how to. I don't know what the solution is, I really don't know. Like, I don't know if we keep talking about it or it's something that, like, I don't know. Like, do we schedule a time and we're like, okay, today we are just going to explode in tattoos, whatever, ever zones. You know what I mean? Like, what does that even look like? And it's not like when you're a teenager. I mean, I wouldn't know what it's like being intimate when you're a teenager, right? Because I only started being active in my early mid-20s. So I don't know what the experience is for teenagers, but I would imagine there's lots of conversations and like trying to figure out what is what, where is where, you know what I mean? Whereas as an adult, because of all these competing demands that I've mentioned, it's so easy, it's so easy to then like put this at the back of your mind because you feel like, oh, there's other things we need to get to, you know what I mean? But I do see the danger in that potentially being neglected in the long run, But also, like, I'm just like, what is the solution? Do we really just pencil it in and we're like, okay, today isn't that Tuesday? Like we're just gonna explore all of that. You know what I mean? Which also adds pressure, and like I imagine that kind of interaction would make me feel like as a project, as like a problem to be dealt with, to be addressed or whatever. Like, I don't know if it's a symptom of being a woman still and how I was raised, to always consider others. But there's a selfishness that I think I don't have, which I need to be able to pursue my own pleasure. You know what I mean? Like, I am such a people pleaser, guys, and it really does show up in this way as well. Like, I want to be good at whatever makes the other person happy. But then the receiving part is not so easy, right? Like, I don't like the attention that comes with being on the receiving end, but it is necessary. And so then how do I deal with that? And that's part of the discomfort then, and the feelings of disempowerment, because I'm like, why am I being like a hypothesis that needs to be like, studied? Why am I being a problem statement that needs to be solved, investigated and researched? You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is just so uncomfortable. And I don't think the discomfort of a relationship is often spoken about. But maybe that's because people in average don't confront or experience the discomfort. It's just a me thing. I have no idea. But I'm telling you guys, there is a lot of discomfort. And I have alluded to it previously, but I think the feeling of discomfort or even disempowerment, like I said, has been growing more and more. And I'm just looking for people who maybe have solutions about how to tackle some of these things, and how to balance my values and views about the world versus my experiences in in the relationship. Because yes, I am in a loving relationship with someone who's kind and generous and respects me, but the feelings of uneasiness are still there. And maybe it could be because of the broader social structure of heterosexual relationships in which our relationship exists, and some of the burdens and conditionings that I've experienced in my younger years that still influence how I show up in these relationships. So I don't know. I don't know. I think there's a lot of factors at play. Like, I mean, I mentioned the gendered labor situation where a woman automatically is expected to perform certain domestic chores, like the cooking thing, and it's no different to him as well. But sometimes it is burdensome, the emotional caregiving that I also mentioned. But on this one, I'll say it falls equally on both of us because he cares. He is so emotionally present. Like, I think he's the most attentive and emotionally intelligent partner I've ever been with, And that's why it's so easy for me to then, sometimes consider him more than I do myself, because he does that so well for me, I was talking about the sexual politics stuff, which does exist in a relationship context as well. I don't know if I wouldn't necessarily say it's a power dynamic. I mean, I almost revealed a personal fact about him, which I don't have the permission to share. But yeah, like, it's not necessarily a power dynamic, but there are sexual politics that exist, within myself and him, which do shape our interaction as well. And that has been burdensome as well. The beauty standards, guys. I mean, men are quite, shallow, I suppose. I am too now. I at least have decided to be shallow and like be on my hot guy era, you know what I mean? But I see how it makes him happy. And obviously I do want to make him happy. But the beauty standards that make him happy require so much effort. And I'm just like, like, why can't a gorgeous woman be, I don't know, in the natural shrunken effort, you know what I mean? Be me in my baggy ass pajamas that my mom handed down to me. And these are real examples because that's how I am most of the time, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm happy with that. I'm satisfied with that. But I'm realizing, I really haven't been in a relationship for a very long time because every time this guy sees me, I'm in pajamas. Oversized pajamas. Like, even my sister commented on those pajamas this weekend and she was like, your pants, what's wrong with them? And I didn't see anything wrong with them because to me, they're comfortable and they're warm and it's cold. It's practical, guys. And they feel like a hug because the material is just so soft. But to the second person, it's probably like off-putting, right? And clearly he had an issue with them. But I'm like, I'm really not equipped to be in a relationship. Like, yo, guys. Oh, the pajama thing is so funny. But that's just an example of, beauty standards / expectations that people have in relationships, which I now have to cater for. But it deviates so much from how I see myself, because for me, being comfortable is so much more important than doing all these things for the male gaze, you know what I mean? Or like other people's approvals. Like, I couldn't care less, Like, I'll go out in public with my hair looking very shady according to society standards. But like, I'm comfortable and I'm like, I don't give a damn, you know what I mean? But suddenly I do have to give a damn because how someone else sees me and experiences me matters, right? And influences so much. So those are some of the things I can't get away from by simply being in a relationship with a man, you know what I mean? So I I have to participate in the system as well. That's also very problematic, you know. But I think outside of the system itself, as a society, it's also something that exists within my relationship as well. Like, I don't know, I think it's that overlap between societal expectations versus my personal experiences or expectations within my own relationship, you know. And I just haven't been able to reconcile the two. And that's why I feel disempowered sometimes, because I see those overlaps and how normal they are. Like, I think I almost sound crazy when I question some of these things, you know. Not crazy, I just don't have the right word to use, but I almost sound, I'd say, naive, you know, when I don't pay attention to these things, because I suppose they are important in maintaining a relationship, like a spark within a relationship or whatever, attraction or peace or whatever it is. You know, you can insert whatever word you want to use for why these things exist. But I also can't shake the feeling that some of these things feel oppressive to me, you know. Yeah, like, I don't know. It's like one of the biggest fears about, you know, getting in a relationship that is loving and transformative is the fact that I may potentially disappear because I'm trying to cater to a person's needs so much, you know, or that I love them so much I neglect myself in the process. I don't want to disappear within a relationship. So I think some of that discomfort is trying to balance the two, you know, to say, hey, I'm this person and I love being this person. That said, I'm not opposed to evolving so that I can be a better partner. But to what extent is that evolution a disappearance of self, you know, or of the person that I love and care about, that I am very proud to be, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know, like, and also, like, I think the discomfort with experiencing these feelings and thoughts is knowing that you know, he's a good person. There's no doubt about that. And the fact that expressing these may imply that he isn't, or that even the relationship is oppressive, it isn't. But I am sensitive to the ways that this intimate relationship is reorganizing my life, you know, and is expecting me to change certain things about myself, you know, just to accommodate the other person. But I don't think the expectations are even, you know, across the board, because I couldn't care less about what he looks like, you know what I mean? So beauty standards don't necessarily apply to him. Yes, I enjoy his hot body, I enjoy his gorgeous face or whatever, but there's very little that he has to do to maintain that, you know what I mean? Like, I think he could have just woken up with morning breath and like a crusty looking face, and I'd still feel the same way about him. If anything, I'd feel like, oh, this is so cute because I get to experience him in his, you know, true form without all this fluff, you know. But I don't know if that's because I'm like feminist or because I'm just a hippie. Like, I seriously have no idea. Like, but that niche would make me feel closer, like, you know, to him. Like, yeah, he trusts me enough to let me see him in this state or whatever the case is. You know what I mean? Like, I hope this makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, Oh my goodness. Yeah. All I can say is, since I know he does listen, is that I hope he knows that my feelings of discomfort about this whole thing aren't about him, you know. Yes, he is loving, he's supportive, but I do still feel uneasy. And maybe my discomfort is about societal beliefs at large, you know, the structure itself in which romantic relationships between men and women exist. You know, yes, so much has changed, but actually so much has remained the same, or there's still so much more that needs to be changed, because there are inequalities that still show up in individual relationships, you know. So I don't want to feel like I'm betraying myself by being in a romantic relationship with a man, you know, that I'm being untrue to myself. I also don't feel, I don't want to feel like I'm sacrificing so much of myself, while the other person maybe isn't sacrificing as much, you know, or that there is at least some level of equality in how much we're sacrificing, you know, such that I can still stand on a public platform and like share about my thoughts and experiences in a way that feels true and not performative or disingenuous, you know. So yeah, that's what I've been dealing with lately. But I'll find a way to still keep my voice, you know, even in the process of uneasiness or the discomfort, and without feeling like I'm being untrue or like betraying myself. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's what I've been thinking about. How are you guys doing? I hope you're well. Sure, I'm really like, I wish I could have a panel discussion about relationships, because so many times I feel like I'm always an anomaly with relationships, you know. I always feel like I don't know enough, I don't have enough pull to draw from or experiences to draw from. And so it would really help to be able to have this honest conversation from a woman's perspective, you know, about what your guys' experiences have been. Or is it purely because of my political beliefs, you know, about equality, and therefore that within a relationship context, which doesn't always work in a patriarchal society, you know, and quote unquote a conservative society. And I say that reluctantly, because South Africans are far from conservative, actually. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you guys are feeling about this. Please, please, please comment. Drop me a review, something. I'm really keen to hear your guys' experiences. But maybe I should start a page where we can, you know, I can get that feedback loop. But I don't want to create another social media page because I'm exhausted. Like, I don't have the time to balance all these things. As much as I want to be on here often and like talk to you guys, I'm hoping the reviews will be, you know, enough of a channel or a conduit through which we can actually explore these conversations. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. I'll try to be as consistent, but I cannot make any promises. As you can hear, I am drowning, like I am struggling to maintain all these other aspects of my life and keep all of them afloat. But yeah, I hope to see you at the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me, and do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye. Love you. Bye.